Joining us. My name is Susan Monroe. I work with the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. And I don't want to take up too much time, but I do want to welcome everyone to our webinar, Authentic Brand Leadership During a COVID Crisis. And I'd like to introduce Jayne Siemens. She is our president of Venice Communications, and she's a very result-oriented, creative, innovative professional with 20 plus years of diverse experience in managing managing and executing local and national branding, web, interactive media, public relations, social media and marketing campaigns, and public affair programs. She's the Kansas Women Business Advocate of the Year and the Enterprising Woman of the Year from Enterprising Women's Magazine. She has managed PR and crisis campaigns for Comcast, Casey Scholars, and many more. Jayne has spearheaded the community engagement and branding initiatives for several regional projects for Wichita South Central Neighborhood Planning, Midtown Complete Streets Project, Downtown Council, and many others. Thank you again all for joining us today. Jayne, I'll turn things over to you.
Well, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know it's a crazy time for all of us, but I wanted to really focus us in a little bit on authentic brand leadership and what this means to each of you individually and to your organizations during this COVID crisis. So we'll be doing some interactive video as well as me just chatting with you. And I also, if you have any questions as we're going through this, please feel free to write down your questions in the chat box, and we'll try to answer some of those at the end of the presentation. So let's get started. Andy, you want to jump on the first video? Oh, no sound on mine. I'm not getting any sound.
What is your brand initiative going to do for your community and for your employees? So let's think about showing up and doing your part, not only for your employees, but externally. Don't disappear. Let's find a way to use your brand for the good of the community, whether that's supply chain, movements of goods and services, creating new services. What are the resources you have to make a difference in this pandemic? You will matter. Don't act alone. Look at your community, look to your employees to help you come up with creative ideas to use your product or services for the greater good rather than just focusing on yourselves and profit. Solve, don't sell. This is not about selling your product or service right now. It's about looking to the community you have within and sharing what you have to offer in a compassionate way. And make sure to communicate with honesty, emotion, compassion, and facts, and be transparent in what's going on with your own community and with your own company and what dilemmas you're facing, but also ways to make your community better now and moving forward.
So on to the next slide. This is really, really important to think about, is showing up to do your part.
How do smart brands handle a crisis?
Sorry about
this. This is really
Jayne.
valuable.
Sorry, just jump to the next slide. There you go. Sorry, technology and Zoom. Again, show up and do your part. Don't disappear. Right now, everyone wants to hunker down because there's a lot of fear out there. But right now, you need to use your resources and your community to gather and start thinking about brand equity. Don't act alone. We need to be talking with our community, with our employees, with all the people that you work with to think about how to get through this. Another really important thing to bring up again is solve, don't sell. This is not the time to be thinking about your marketing the way you've been doing it all along. How can we solve community problems? And I cannot emphasize this enough. It's really important to be transparent. If you're hurting as a company or employees are hurting, we need to talk about it honestly during a time. Really, authentic leaders are all about transparency. So who's doing some amazing things out there that I want to share? We need to think about pivoting your message when you're in a crisis like this. And here's a couple of ideas that amazing brands are doing really well. Visa had to pivot their message almost immediately. They had 80% of their Olympic creative ads already done, and then it was postponed. So instead of stalling, they immediately took their roster of Team Visa athletes to film new spots, this time in their homes using phones, showing off their superhuman feats. But just like us, they had to wash their hands and they have to sanitize. So let's take a look at one of these mini spots.
Hi, I'm Kenneth Tencio, and this is not easy. But this is.
So here we are. Visa is doing something. They've pivoted almost immediately. They're keeping up spirits of perseverance, and shared humanity is top of mind. So their brand equity is going to stay in place whether the Olympics go on now or whenever they start again. So that's a really great spot. Another one that I want to share with you, the next slide, is looking at past moments of crisis. Andy, we might want to go to the next slide. There we go. The NASA social campaign. The creative designer of NASA created a series of travel posters promoting social distancing. She had to realize, how do I rethink the US and bolster national pride, but promote the social distancing? And she was inspired by old propaganda art posters from Work Progress Administration during the Great Depression era, which maybe not too many of you remember that, neither do I, but this was amazing. So what she did was she engaged artists to create illustrations. Some of them were out of work because of the crisis, to create these amazing illustrations of people living their best vacations at home. Surf your couch, visit your one house plant, take a trip to the bathroom. So who cannot relate to this? Major campaign going viral throughout all the social media posters. On the next one, you probably know a bit about this locally. How do we pivot and create a new product with what we've already got? Local breweries and distilleries throughout Main Street in the United States, their income comes from bars and many restaurants. They're really in trouble. So they pivoted, such as J. Rieger, as you know, locally here. They turned their alcohol processing into hand sanitizers to help the world. And the grassroots effort has taken off industry-wide, including the international organizations of AB, InBev, and Bacardi. So some are taking the charitable opportunity to do memorable branding with stylish bottles and labels, but thinking about giving back. They're putting out a product widely, and the investment is going to pay off after the crisis is done. And that's what we have to think about, even though it's difficult. The next one, I just love this, and you may have seen this. Who's earned the right to speak? Who doesn't know about Burger King? Yes, you can still go through the drive-through, but they're losing business. So instead of fear, they decided to do something that inspired a stay-at-home campaign. This is actually from Burger King France. They published a guide on how to make their iconic Whopper sandwich in your own kitchen. So it's a fun way to keep the brand top of mind, and it worked because the chain has already earned its right in the spotlight. And if you notice on this, it's also giving some of their suppliers a plug. So phenomenal opportunity, and they didn't miss it. And the next one, if you're a technology-oriented company, this is something to consider. Comcast has been a longtime client. They're thinking about giving back service to communities in need. And they were the first national company to offer 60 days of free internet connectivity to low-income families and individuals that qualify, as well as vets. And they're also waiving data caps for all of their customers. And they're offering free Wi-Fi even to non-subscribers everywhere in the United States. This is really amazing, and they pivoted quickly when the country decided to shut down. Their brand equity's through the roof because they took the lead on realizing communities without broadband service are really at a disadvantage. And it's bringing also up a huge issue that has to be dealt with, especially when this crisis is over, is how do we lead the broadband charge, and Comcast is going to be part of that. This is authentic leadership at its best. So some other things that you're probably thinking about is, how do you support your community in unprecedented times? Our lives, some of our lives feel that they're in danger. Who has ever really experienced what we're experiencing right now? I can't say that I'm feeling that comfortable on a daily basis. Even going to the grocery store is a difficult experience. But I think there's no short-term fixes for this dilemma, but you can still respond with speed, focus, and impact in many ways. We like to work with our clients to share good news through storytelling. But in this time, it's so much more important to show the real you. How do you leverage your equity? My suggestion is express genuine care and real-time focus. You can bridge these troubling times by the ways your organizations uniquely respond to this crisis. And I cannot say this loud enough. A brand is what you do, not about your logo. You have to have the emblem there, but in a crisis like this, a problem can lead to an opportunity. And I believe that this business world may have changed forever. So how do we respond? Communicating how crisis impacts your clients, customers, and stakeholders is important. How do we mitigate uncertainties through short time frame communications? My thought is, let's think 60 days, because your marketing is going to run a risk if you don't think right now about the tone of your communication. You can actually sound tone deaf and come off incorrectly and out of touch if you're not really sensitive to how people are feeling. We want to eventually say that this crisis is behind us, but for now, to build brand equity, you have to be really, really sensitive to your messaging. So what is your story? What can you offer to the community and to the world? Is it donating services or infrastructure? How can you do that? It's really interesting. I have an architectural client, and they build dormitories for campuses across the United States. And you know what's happening right now. Some of these schools might not even be open in the fall. So they have been offering those buildings for hospitals if they're overrun in their hospitals for COVID patients. Huge, huge opportunity there. But it may be a smaller thing. That's a huge opportunity. The KCATA is letting people ride the bus for free, but they're also, I understand, taking meals around to people in low-income areas of our city. Huge opportunity. How do we support people who have lost their incomes? One of our clients, Port KC, is encouraging employees to support their local restaurants by ordering curbside. I'm sure some of you are doing that. Tipping well, and looking at the city service folk. How can you thank them? How can you give back to them? And I don't know if you noticed, it was in the paper a few days ago, Allstate is giving customers refunds for months when people aren't driving as much. And then AAA, which is my company, is now following suit. And my bank is actually waiving interest fees for small businesses hurting from the crisis at this moment on their credit cards. So there's big and small ways to contribute and build brand equity. Now, I don't know if any of you here today work in supply chain, but how are ways that you can give back? I know Ford is doing amazing things, but is there any way that you can use your supply chain to help get healthcare products to hospitals or food to healthcare workers? Is there a service you offer that can be discounted or translated into helping the process of saving lives? Think about this. Again, authentic leadership and brand equity is built on community support right now. So what is the story that you want to tell, and how do you want to be remembered when this crisis is averted? Now I'd like to talk a little bit and go into a video about crisis planning during this time and how you create internal and external messaging and avert emotional crises, which is what we're all dealing with.
Do you have internal and external messaging in place? This is so important to focus on your authentic core values and clearly shine through during a crisis. The tone of what you share with your employees, customers, and stakeholders is so important. You also need to respond with speed, focus, and impact. It's so, so very important. And you have to think about what are the ways in your focus and your speech and your tone that are going to impact people in a way that it's going to allay their fears in your employees and customers. Why do we get fearful in a situation like this? Other than the obvious things, what is it about? It's about money. It's about family. It's about taking care of loved ones and your parents. This is of concern to all of your employees. So think about those things. Work with your PR partners or your communications department. They can work through this messaging and crisis planning so you can focus on being, let me say this loudly, voice of reason when you might be even feeling fearful yourself. Creating meaningful messages will affect productivity and build brand equity. We need to think about the big picture in this case. What about your crisis planning? What are you thinking about in relation to your brand during this time? Are you going to be an authentic leader? Because I can tell you right now, authenticity reigns supreme right now. BS is just out the window. You have to bring your crisis team together and look at all the issues internally and externally and create a plan. What are the greatest risks? What are the least risks you have to consider? And who are all the audiences that are affected by your business? It's huge. Create opportunities to avert internal crises to help your employees focus on that bigger picture and how they can give back to the community. Right now, this crisis, yes, it seems like a problem, but it can also be an amazing opportunity. Think about this. You might want to pivot for remote communications. I think businesses might be changing forever as we move past this crisis, but you have to start making an honest and transparent plan and be authentic now. This is a major situation you have to focus on with facts. You need to communicate for the immediate future about how this current crisis is impacting your customers and stakeholders. You can proactively focus on communications and how crisis impacts your people and your products and services. Right now, you can think in the short term, 60 days or so, but marketing or communicating runs the big risk of becoming tone deaf if you're out of touch of how this is affecting your community and your employees. Start thinking about this crisis, be empathetic, and also think about how you need to move forward after the crisis is averted. How do you want your brand to be seen in the community? Empathetic? Let's stay calm. Let's stay home. Let's social distance and make sure the community knows that you are considering all of those aspects.
So how can you pivot business after COVID? Some things you might think about is retooling again, still thinking about the community, because I think it's still going to be about resources and business plans that are still focused on the good of the community and potentially the world. Why are dolphins swimming in Venice Canal? What is nature telling us about our relationship with the world? Should humans go back to business as usual after the crisis is averted? I don't think it will. How can we think more humbly about how we interact with our employees, stakeholders, customers, and the community to strive for a better future for humanity? What is the pandemic teaching us? How will our values change? How will we measure growth in the future? What will our goals be? Is our business plan focused on just profit or profit and sustainability for the world? What is nature telling us about good business practices? How can we better be preserved to serve our community and our global partners? Authentic leaders will ask these questions and be ready to answer. So in encapsulating today's presentation, again, give back to your community in crisis. Remember that a brand is about what you do, not about your logo. Please create a crisis plan and messaging. If you haven't done this yet, make sure to work with someone to go through that process. Invent creative ways to sustain business in the post-COVID world, and hopefully that's coming sooner rather than later. And then remember, you are not alone. Please ask your employees, work in teams to come up with new plans and ideas and creative ways to build brand equity. Talk to your customers, talk to your stakeholders. We are all in this together. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sorry I can't see all of your faces. This is really sort of an island under ourselves, but if you have any questions or want to share some ways that you are giving back to the community, we'd love to hear from you, or send me questions. I don't see any chat questions yet, but if anyone has any questions, please let me know. And if not, oh, thank you. I'm also happy to answer questions offline as you're thinking about this. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. That was really useful information. I appreciate you both taking the time today to speak with us and all of our participants. We'll keep the chat open for just a few more minutes and see if we get anybody that has any questions. Otherwise, I do encourage everybody to go ahead and email Jayne. We also have this webinar recorded, and we'll send it out and post it on our YouTube channel if anyone wants to rewatch it. Maybe they missed something or joined the call late, but we will have that public probably by the end of today.
Great.
Everybody,
Susan,
please stay safe.
Susan, this is Vicki. Would you mind, can we get everybody's face up for a few moments while we
Yeah, I can try to do that. Let me see.
thought that might generate a little conversation potentially. Hi, Jayne.
Hi, Vicki.
Thanks for doing that. That was amazing.
Happy to help. It's just always nicer to be in person. That's what I miss.
So the process is I need to ask people to start their video by prompting them to in Zoom. So I'm doing that now. Everyone does have the ability to start their own video if they'd like, but you will be getting a request on your screen to start the video. All right, everybody has been asked.
Everybody wants to go to lunch.
That could be it, yes.
Hi, Jayne.
Hi. Do I see someone? I haven't seen anyone. Let's see.
Some people have
Oh,
been-
there we go.
Okay.
I see Vicki. How are you, Susan?
I'm good. It's been a while, huh?
No, thanks for coming on. It's nice to see real faces.
I know it is.
Whew. I miss real skin, seeing real.
So I do have one question just kind of for the group. So it seems like we were talking in an earlier team meeting today with the chamber, that as we talked to the chamber members, that first week or two felt very hectic and everybody was getting used to working at home. And now we're starting to see this sense that people are in their rhythm and have come up with kind of their pivoting. Hopefully most companies have already done that pivoting. So I thought it was optimistic that there is this sense of really the community coming together. And I've been, you had the great opportunity to talk to a lot of members and a lot of different organizations. So I think it's really a positive and optimistic feeling that's coming through, and we're all coming together, which I think is great. So I was just curious if there's anybody out there that wants to share maybe what they've done as an organization to pivot and how they've jumped in to the creating that new message.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Billy Peters. I'm the communications and media coordinator with Traders Insurance. And so this presentation today kind of got me thinking a little bit, and then also was an affirmation of some of the things that we've taken part in already. And we don't face our customers very much in our branding or advertising, because our business channels are through independent insurance agencies. But at first, so I felt frantic working from home, and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to do much for our internal culture, just sort of our outreach in the community and things like that. I was wondering how this was all going to work out. But then, so you're right, as everybody kind of like settles in and things like that. So one of the things that we did is now we've got a Traders Insight newsletter that goes out to our entire company on Mondays and Fridays. And we ask for pictures of the kids at home or the pets that you have, your new coworkers, and also share some writing from our leadership about how we mobilized, because we didn't really have much of a remote work opportunity for many of our employees. It was all, we maybe had 40 laptops that people could take home, but there wasn't really a sustainable work from home type of any processes for us. So that was our plan this year. And one of the stories that we have is what was going to be a 6-month project was crammed into 3 weeks essentially. And so that was pretty cool.
That's really needed. So it sounds like you've really jumped right on, because you had to, for your employees' sake, to work remotely. I'm just kind of curious, have you, in your situation, and we're dealing with this with some clients, is, asking our customers to share their concerns as well. It looks like you've taken care of your employees and you're starting to really build that good internal communication so you can keep the meetings going, and I'm sure you have a way to connect with customers. But have you had a chance, and you may have already, but to talk with your customers or send them notes and say, we want to, how are you doing? How is your family, or how's your company? Is there anything we can do to help you that isn't directly related to selling the service? I think that's the tone I was kind of referring to in my communication, is even though, yes, you might have pivoted already, people are still overwhelmed by this change, and it's not going away anytime soon. I'm just curious, and you may be doing that in your newsletters, asking those questions, but the more personal you can make some of that, your customer interactions like that might be helpful.
That's true. And I think that's the next step for us. We've reached out to our independent insurance agent partners and sort of offered some different ways, because if they can't open their agency, they can refer to us and we'll still give them the business commission and things like that, but try to write some of that business. So we've reached out to them, but I think that is the next step, is for us to actually face our customer base a little more in our messaging.
Could I also jump in and maybe suggest you approach that almost like a survey? Because I know Casey SourceLink sent out surveys to our clients, and that way we were able to really focus in on what people were needing and missing. So instead of maybe just casting a wide net, you ask some real specific questions about what they need.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and maybe target that to certain areas of Kansas City if there's certain ways we can help out or anything like that. Thank you.
I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I just sent a chat to Matt, and I don't know if he's tuned in or not, but Matt's with the Royals. So
Oh, yeah.
I'd be very curious to hear what the Royals is doing right now.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I
Yes.
hope that's okay that I called you out there.
No, you're fine. Can you hear me?
Hey, Matt.
Can you turn your video on or not?
I
Yeah.
see him. Oh,
Oh,
no,
I-
that's, no, I don't see him.
No, you don't. I'm not. None of us, I guess. Look, I'm not looking great today, so I without video.
I like
It's a
your
nice
shirt.
option.
No, yeah. See, I got hat, hair. I'm a mess. But might as well just expose my, show like everyone else. So hello, everybody.
Hi,
Yeah,
Matt.
I'm, the Royals. I'm in the marketing department. So overall, we don't have a whole lot to update on. We haven't been given much direction for Major League Baseball. So we're putting together like plans, but there are options of playing games at the spring training complexes in both Arizona and Florida without fans. We're also looking at the option of playing games in Kansas City with fans, and then being fully back and playing games in Kansas City with fans. So we're still kind of projecting maybe something in June or July. But we'll see. But once we do start back up, most likely when it'll be without fans for a while and then hopefully gradually get back. But we are constantly looking at how are we going to change our processes in terms of fans coming to the ballpark, because a lot of people understandably aren't going to feel comfortable or safe being in large crowds.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a whole group. It's called our Back to Baseball Committee. That's looking at all facets of once we do open up our gates to fans, what are the processes and procedures? Do we only let a certain number of fans in? Do we sit people every other seat? Do you do mobile ordering and then basically try to avoid contact, right? So we put the food out and let people just take it. Hand washing stations, Purell everywhere. Wiping down the stadium after each game, those sort of elements. So you have to look at all those facets. And really, I think once baseball does start back up, our messaging will be not really a sales message, but more of a we want you to feel safe coming to the ballpark message. And so we talked this morning about creating commercials around that of talking about, just fans being comfortable to come back. So we're looking at that. I think the one area that we have really excelled on the last few weeks is the social media. So I don't know if anyone follows our social media channels, but social media is more relevant than ever. And we're really trying to get creative and think outside the box. That's the one platform that we have right now to create content. And so our social media and digital team is busier than ever, trying to create content, get stuff out. And that's really our only way to engage fans right now. So that social media element is important.
It's interesting. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's it. Yeah.
I'm just curious, will you, when you start bringing fans back in, did you say this already, but will you keep them at a certain distance from each other and only allow a certain number of in at a time? Is that kind of what just curious if you even got to that point yet?
Yeah, that's our initial thought. Obviously nothing's official.
Right.
But you're looking at all scenarios. So yeah, and I think there'll be some mandates from Major League Baseball as well. So hopefully we have them to guide us. But yeah, there's talks of maybe you only let 5,000 people in and only 5,000 people can watch the game. And then obviously you encourage people to sit away from each other, that sort of thing. So
right.
We're looking at those sort of options. Yeah. But
I'm just curious, is your organization trying to lobby for more testing? So when more of us will get tested, this is always the issue. I think when you can't, was it Korea that, everybody got tested really fast. So it was easier to know when you're walking in or out, whether you're, whether you are asymptomatic and you have it, should you stay away? We have such little information the
Right.
testing. I was just curious if if the Royals, are looking into that. Some organizations are really pressing to try to get more people tested
Yeah.
because of their business situation like this.
Right. Right. Yeah. I believe we are. I can't really comment because I don't know. But I'm sure that, I think more testing helps all of us. I don't know if you saw in the news over the last 24 hours, but Major League Baseball has agreed to test some of its employees, some of its players for the greater good. So not really a baseball study, but they're working with the health department, and they're doing a study with about 10,000 of our people to get a better feel of how widespread it is impacted. So they're taking tests now. But yeah, I think more tests will help. But we're very much in limbo. Every day is a different contingency plan. We've kind of had to scrap a lot of what we had planned for this season, and we've just really, you have to be nimble, you have to be flexible, and you have to understand that when things do go back, they're probably not going to go back to normal, and that there's new normal, and figuring out what that new normal looks like.
Yeah.
Good for you. It sounds like you're asking all the right questions. Vicki, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just, I wanted to just see if Jen Nussbeck had anything to add. I think she's the Chief Development Officer at Hope House. It's a domestic abuse shelter, and I think it would be great just to kind of have her weigh in from the nonprofit voice and just what's going on there as far as their messaging, because this obviously is a challenging time to, you're not necessarily wanting to ask donors for money, and how do you get your message out now?
Sure. Well, it is good to see everyone's faces. I am still loving Zoom and having some interaction with people. So it's nice to put our faces with names up here. And Jayne and Vicki, thanks for having us. This is actually a very relevant webinar for Hope House. When you talk about storytelling, Hope House has been around 38 years, and we really are still only known as the Battered Women's Shelter.
Yeah.
And we are working incredibly hard to how to tell that story in a different capacity, because we are far bigger than just emergency shelter. Mm-hmm. So that is where I was really interested to hear some of the points you made today, and I thank you for that. And shifting the how we're telling our story, and that there are services far bigger and far reaching for those being victimized, particularly in this state of crisis. We are not seeing an increase in calls to our hotline nor the police departments. And that is, they're being held captive, and that's one of our challenges. But 2 points to make. We had to shift our model. We are very much face-to-face organization. We do a lot of call outs with the police departments. So limiting that, our hospital visits, the courts being closed. We do a supervised visitation and safe exchange of children. That's been closed. We've never done telehealth therapy. We've shifted to that. But I want to mention one remarkable thing that Partners in Kansas City has helped us with. We have 2 emergency shelters, and on any given day, there's 122 women and children. They can't social distance in a communal living. And we reached out to some hotel partners that were in need of business that were able to work with us, and we were able to spread out our clients and their children and give them more of an extended stay environment, and working with harvesters. So anybody that's donated, from Royals players, Chiefs players, other people in the city that have donated to harvesters, we are a recipient for that, so thank you. And for us, as far as fundraising, it's a challenge. We are having the utmost reverence for not soliciting. We've had to cancel 3 major fundraisers. People are not interested in doing sponsorships, so to speak. And so we are just redirecting funding and from the relief fund that Greater Kansas City Community Foundation has put together, as well as some of our foundation and grants have been reallocated. We're very grateful. It's really interesting that although we're a nonprofit, our business growth is the same. We just are labeled as a nonprofit. We have payroll and bills and 2 campuses to support. So sorry I took longer than I probably should have, but I just really have great affection for those pushing through the grind and pivoting and changing as needed, and love hearing all that everybody's doing. Vicki, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It sounds like you're doing amazing things and getting your story out and what you're comfortable sharing with the media and through social channels to keep that word out. I mean, I've learned some things right now that I did not know, and it may have been out there, I may not have seen it. There's so much coming at you right now, at us right now. You have to sift through it all, right? But you told some very poignant things you've just said today. So you have amazing stories to tell, and what you've been able to do in partnering with the hotels. I know some other organizations have done similar things, but that's good for the community to hear. Thanks for all of your hard work.
I'm going to jump in here. I am Jennifer Dreiling from the Barstow School, and I do fundraising for the school and an additional project that we've been working on called Idea Space, which is an innovation educational space. It's an old Hy-Vee grocery store that is currently an old Hy-Vee grocery store, which is converting into an educational space. So the fundraising, Jen, I understand your challenges, and when you talked about the funding need, I've really been digging into how do I continue to fundraise in a crisis like this. And I've really decided to take a back seat in educational fundraising, especially private school fundraising, realizing that there are other needs out there, such as small business opportunities. Hope House, of course, needs the money right now before we do. But we have offered our space to the state of Kansas. They're contemplating purchasing sanitation containers that will sanitize N95 masks, so possibly putting those in our space for the time being. But ironically, the Barstow School has been working on over the last 6 months an online called Barstow Global Online. So a program for non-traditional students that are accelerating in athletics, or a non-traditional student being a high achiever, a young professional, a young artist, or international students. But the way we've pivoted this and sped up our launch process for Barstow Global Online is that we'll be offering this summer courses and classes for students whose educational path has been interrupted. So while I work at the Barstow School, my kids are in the Olathe School District, and seeing the discrepancies these kids at from Olathe School District are receiving versus my sister, who's a teacher in Kansas City, Kansas, to the Barstow students and other independent schools, or such as the parochial schools or independent schools, the discrepancies. So Barstow Global Online will be offering sessions this summer to allow students to come in and pick up a math course, pick up a literature class, classes to really fill that gap over what we have lost in this last semester, or this last quarter of this traditional school year. And as a fundraiser, I said we need to offer this opportunity to not just our Barstow kids, but our kids across the Kansas City region. And in all honesty, our Barstow kids have not missed a beat. They have, the intensity of their school is just intense, if not even more than it would have been coming into the classroom. So we're working with the community and looking for donors and sponsors to help offset the cost that it would be for those students to come in that potentially had a parent, one or both parents that have lost their jobs during this time, taken a significant pay cut, or children that are already on a free and reduced lunch program. So really offering it to the community. So those are some of the ways that we've been pivoting. I will say I love building relationships and friendships, and this has really allowed me to go back to all of these people that I have been cultivating as donors over the last year and really just reaching out. It's made me feel so good just saying, hey, how are you doing? What can I do to help? I'm young and healthy. I can run to the grocery store for you, whatever it may be. And that has just brought me a lot of peace during this uncertain and crazy time. So as Jen said, I probably feel like I've talked too much now as well, but from the educational world, we are too pivoting and concerned about, how we move forward with education and how education changes drastically.
That's fantastic. You've done amazing things and reaching out personally like you are too. And that's what I think I'm talking about, that tone. Sounds like you're finding the right tone and you're, keeping those courses going online and pivoting like that. That's huge. So kudos to you.
I noticed on the chat, and this is Andy, that Susan from KC SourceLink put a link for everyone on coronavirus business resources. So if anyone would like to copy that address and look it up later, they may do that.
And they are updating it regularly too. I've been really impressed with their effort. So check it out.
That's
Thank
great.
you, Susan.
Thank
And
you.
then also maybe someone else more knowledgeable could address this, but as far as the CARES package and federal assistance goes, there is some money or available for nonprofits. Can anybody tell us more about that?
That's not my expertise, but I know it's out there. Anybody else who's focused on working through that funding
I'm
process?
happy to mention it, or if there's someone that has, an even more experience. I know for Hope House, we did apply for the PPP through our local bank. We did ask for the 2.5 times our payroll. We understand the guidelines that have to happen within that 8.5 weeks. Our challenge was we had a couple of federal grants that are overlapping, and so adjusting what that looked like so that we didn't have the penalty of payback on the other side of that. The EIDL actually is another loan program that is available. I do recommend for nonprofits to look at that. Well, even for profits, but for nonprofits, the additional loan rate is at 2 3/4, and there is some upfront money and a much longer payment plan. And I think that those are two really strong avenues to look at when funding, particularly payroll, and some operational costs such as utilities, et cetera. So no matter how small or large, we have an operating budget of $7 million with 90 employees, and we can't afford to have anyone on our front line laid off. So
yeah.
And one other thing about the EIDL, there is, for some of you smaller businesses, there is a $10,000 forgivable loan that's part of EIDL. So you can, if you haven't already applied for that, you can actually specifically just ask for that $10,000 bucket, as long as you're not, you can't double dip with the PPP, obviously, but there is that element of that loan that is available. So that's nonprofits and 501c3s and small business. So if you haven't looked into that, I don't know at this point if it's already, I mean, I've seen some communications and articles today about PPP is running low, but I'm not sure about that $10,000 forgivable loan under EIDL. So that was.
I talked to somebody from the SBA last week, and she did say that they're, everybody wants it yesterday, right? But she said it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks, more like 3 weeks before people start seeing some of that money coming in. I'm not talking about the short-term $1,200 to $1,500 per family thing. this was for the EIDL or the PPP.
Mhm.
I thought that was interesting because a lot of people don't really know when they're supposed to expect any kind of, are they getting a check in the mail or, will they get, so I talked to them about that a little bit. And so patience, she said, have a little patience.
Mhm.
So that was helpful.
Mhm. And one thing I'll just add, for those of you that don't know me, I'm the membership engagement manager at the chamber. And if you all, hopefully a lot of you are getting our emails, but feel free to look at our website. There's a lot of great COVID resource information there. I'm sending over my my email right now. If you all have questions, I'm happy to help however I can. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thanks so much. Does anyone have any other questions or want to share their experiences on reaching out to the community?
Well, I'd like to ask Matt a question. Where did you get that t-shirt? I've seen those through social media feeds. And when you popped on today, I said, that's a t-shirt that I've been trying to get my hands on. It's a good one.
Yeah. I know somebody.
Is it Blue Cross? Is that who's put them out?
Yeah, it might be sponsored by Blue Cross. I know somebody that works for the city.
Yeah.
That's a friend of mine, and she had an extra. She ordered them. She works for Jackson County, and so she gave me one. So they're not for sale to the general public, though.
I can speak
Only
to
for the
that.
cool kid.
The KC Chamber has partnered with Blue and Charlie Hessel and a few other organizations. So we were part of the effort to disperse the 500 shirts. There was 500 shirts that were funded, and they have been allocated. The company that actually did the printing of the t-shirts is no longer working right now. So there is no longer t-shirts available, sadly, for sale. But maybe there will be somebody who wants to jump into the fray and we can get some more shirts. But at this point, it's, yeah. If I find any, Jennifer, I'll see if I can snag you one.
I love that. It makes it a collector's item then, right?
Yeah.
If only 500 were printed. So Matt, you're a lucky kid.
Yeah.
Well, and
to remember the time.
the power of the social media, and we've gotten a lot of requests for the t-shirts, and we wish that we had more available to share, but at least the message got out, right? I mean,
yeah.
I will also say I was on a donor call the other day, and he said, I will know exactly the moment when the all clear is. And he said, actually down to the very second. He was so adamant about it. We said, when? And he said, the first pitch of the Major League Baseball. And I said, I think you're right. So we're all hoping those Royals start pitching and Southie starts catching. So
Come on, Matt.
Amen to that. I know it. I mean, sports is such an escape for a lot of us, and to not have sports right now has been really difficult. That's just one other thing that we don't have.
My husband's go ahead.
I was going to say, Jen had a note in the chat that I don't know if everybody can see that or not, but that they're concerned about victims that are trapped at home with little or no resources to reach out. They're planning for a significant rise as some of the stay-at-home orders are lifted. Just an FYI, please share with anyone that might need help. They can text 911 now, or the Metro hotline, which is 816-hotline. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention.
and I know we're going to get cut off at noon, but I did, Derek, I don't think that I've met you before, so I'm curious to find out your organization or business. And hello, thanks for joining.
Hi, yeah, I work with Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm a brand ambassador for Big Brothers Big Sisters, KC.
So are you paid staff or you volunteer?
I am. I'm paid staff.
Oh, okay. Big Brothers Big Sisters. Is that what you said?
Yeah, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Kansas City.
Great.
And our response has been really interesting. I mean, we mainly do one-on-one, face-to-face mentorship. And when we had that stay-at-home order, we immediately switched to doing virtual. And so we've been doing virtual Facebook events. We've been sending out different emails that kind of give a list of different things that bigs can still do with their littles remotely. We've done actually a few car parades. One of them is actually on the news because one of our littles, I think, had a birthday recently. And so we've done a few car parades for that as well. So we're still, being innovative and trying to make sure that we support the matches that are in our program right now. But that's kind of what we're doing. My job specifically is just kind of about focusing on who Big Brothers Big Sisters is in this context and how we're reaching out to the community. So I've really been having a lot of different meetings with like our different chambers and different stakeholders in the community to just kind of check in with them. How are they doing? This is what Big Brothers Sisters is doing. Is there any way that we can help?
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for your work.
Yes, thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're working with, you made me think about this, we're working with KC Scholars, and they're coming up on May 1. We're announcing all of the amazing student scholarships that are giving away, 1,500 all over. And we can't obviously do 1,500 car parades, but we're going to pick maybe 5 to 6 to do car parades, and also have students, be surprised by, their parents shooting a video.
Yeah.
And we'll put the video together online. So I feel you on the car parade thing. It's the new norm for media opportunities.
It's really fun though. They really like it though.
Yes. I love it. Good for you.
Thank you.
Jayne, did you have any closing remarks before this shuts down on us?
I guess the thing is, don't shut down. Don't shut down your business. Right now is the time to try to be creative. If you're in need of help, there's a lot of resources out there. Find creative ways to, as you're giving back to the community, it's going to come back to you in the long run. That's my thought. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, the Chamber.
Thanks, Jayne.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jayne.
Thank you all. Thank you so much, Jayne. Take
care. Be safe, everybody.
Yeah, likewise.
Bye, you too.
Bye.